Shush. Shush. That's my puppy. He's bugging me because it's his dinner time. So yeah, I've got COVID at the moment, so I'm not very well. I mean, if you remember last time, I was losing my voice a bit. But this week we are going to continue doing, because last week we actually did almost 2 lessons in one. We were meant to do storyboarding stuff. And this week we're meant to do comic pages, but we did comic pages last week as well. So I'm just going to go over a bit of that, and we might move on to the stuff for this lesson, which the next lesson, which is cross-hatching and hatching, stuff like that. So I want to show you a few comic pages first, just to go over what we were talking about. So here is an old, very old Hulk comic. You can see how it's all ripped up. It's really old. I'm not sure when this is from, actually. Let me see, 1978. So it's not quite as old as me, but it's pretty old. Let me move this dog out. Yeah. And what I wanted to show you was the different panels, because we're talking about different panels in the comics. So this isn't the establishing scene. It happens over here, which is just sort of a wide shot and the title of the comic. And then down here is one big panel. So this first page only has 2 panels. And it's on an angle too. You can see there's buildings on an angle and showing these flying saucers coming in. This is the page I want to show you. So we've got shots of the crowd and the flying saucers up in the corner there. See how it's sort of in that third that we're talking about? So the upper third is showing where the saucers are. And then in this one, another shot of the flying saucers, again in that sort of that top corner third there and the bottom third. So it's using this line. If I put a pencil there, you'll be able to see. So like that's the thirds. So the UFOs are sort of in those areas. And then if you look at the thirds on the other way, I've got another small pencil. There we go. That they're using this intersection and this intersection and that intersection. So all 3. So it's leading the eye. And that's just to sort of show what's happening. And then this shot of a man that's been passed out or something. It's a nice long shot, a long panel, I should say. That shows his sort of, even though it's a close-up, it's showing most of his body. So you can see he's on the ground. And then by what's being said, you'll get more of the story. So I don't know if this is a guy on the ground. I think it is. Yeah, it's Bruce Banner. That's who it is. So this is Bruce Banner getting up. So that's him on the ground without his glasses, and then he's putting his glasses on. And these are the people that have found him. And then Betty coming running up towards him. So remember I said right in the middle of the screen, of the panel, is important, even though it's not one of the thirds. The thirds are either side of her, and there's a third here, and a third maybe roughly where her head is a third. But she's directly in the middle, so she demands attention. And then the last one is just more dialogue and stuff like that. So that's storytelling. You want to sort of pick what panels you're going to use to help tell the story. So, using that long one was a good one to show him on the ground. Using these 3 layouts, because you've got groups of people to the side, and then the single one of the woman balances out. So these sort of weigh either side of this single one here. So it's a choice they've made. They haven't just drawn the boxes and then put pictures in afterwards. They've planned it out. Part of me planned out where things are going to go. This next comic, this is a Wolfman comic. It's a more recent one. 2007, this one was. Excuse me, Free Comic Book Day one. But I want to show you these panels. Hang that away. There we go. So, as you can sort of see, this it's all about this one picture here because it has no border. You can see the color, the dark color on the sides goes all the way to the edge, and the purple color at the top goes all the way to the top. So it's one big picture, one big panel with little panels over the top. So we start off with, try and get it so it's not quite as shiny. The werewolf sort of jumping over rooftops, silhouetted, running along rooftops. And then we see a big shot of this werewolf jumping. And the interesting thing is that he is on top of the other panels. I think that's any place. Yeah, that's any place he's on top of. So he's sort of, this is the main image of this whole page. If you want to show him, yeah, he's doing all this stuff running around, but it's him being this scary beast running across the pages. And then he lands, sound effects coming out over the page. You can see those lines that I spoke about last time, just sort of show the angle in which he's moving, and even his body is a big arrow. Everything's pointing down to show that he's landed, and there's this big crash at the bottom. And then we see where he's landed, sort of like he's caused all this rubble. He's walking along, and then we get like sort of a close up of this shot here. So that was like just in there, where he's seen something, like something's got his attention. That's the page I want to show you then. But then you can see here that there he is there. It's sort of like a rooftop Japanese garden thing. There's a man doing something with bonsais, and then he sees red, snarls, attacks. Now this is not bad either. So we see the victim, we've set it up, it's an innocent victim. He sees red, so his animal werewolfness is taking over. This guy is getting attacked, and you just see the shadow of the werewolf on top of him. You're not seeing anything, any blood or anything. And then the last shot is just a broken bonsai plant. So it's sort of very theatrical. He's dropped his plant here, and you see it broken. Not showing any blood or guts being ripped out or anything like that. It's very PG, but obviously somebody died. And again, lots of planning out. That's like a double page spread, that little attack. So running along the building, jumping, landing, finding someone, and then attacking and eating. I'm just going to show you one last comic. This is Capture Creatures, which is sort of like a Pokemon ripoff. This was a pretty modern one, 2014. It's not that modern now, but very simply done. And I think it is just about capturing little creatures. I'm not sure if they're in Pokeballs or something like that. Just skipping ahead to see. I know they've got a creature, but I don't know how they caught it. I think it just falls into their lap, but they end up having this little guy, this little red panda, fire panda kind of thing. But anyway, what I wanted to show you was this sequence here, where it's two characters riding their bikes down a hill. You can see the hills on an angle there, so that you can see how the sky is on an arrow shape. Sorry, so I just realized there was a chat. I hadn't opened the chat yet. I just saw the comment there. Let me extend that out. There we go. Okay. So we're nice and square on that panel, but then as there's an earthquake, so the sound effect is earthquake, and the panels start getting angular like that. Of course, they're uneven, they're off balance. So the ground's wobbling, so now all the panels are in different angles as well. And then when it's at the bottom again and flat, the earthquake stopped and this guy's fallen over. So to help show that the earth is rumbling and moving around, the panels are sort of they're wide here and then small here and wide here and small here and wide here. So the panels are going like this, like an earthquake would. So that's, it does look like Dora. So that is different ways that you can use your story to plan out your pages. Use your pages to tell your story. Use your panels to tell your story. So that's a continuation of what we were doing last week. Did anyone do any more comic stuff after our lesson last week? Anything to share? Nope. Okay. So let's quickly go over, so we're talking about the rule of thirds, breaking up every image into 2 lines down, 2 lines across. Shafir, you did a shooting star comic. And just balancing things out. A lot of this was using depth in your images as well, getting sort of perspective happening instead of just doing flat images, prioritizing whether you want a high horizon or low horizon. And you don't even have to have your horizon visible, like in the that Hulk one I showed you with the ships in the sky. There's no horizon in that, but there is a perspective, which I can draw in this one. So you can see the line. You know what? I'm going to draw it with pen. Don't do this, but this is an old comic that I don't want, so I'm just going to do it anyway. There's a perspective line in the buildings going down like this. So all those lines can be sort of traced coming down. See how I'm tracing these lines? They're all coming down to a point that's probably down here. So that's the vanishing point for all those buildings. Actually, there's, it's 1 point perspective because they're in, oh no, it is 2 point because they're going that way. So there's actually 2 points. If I zoom right out, these angles are coming all the way down to here. This is probably there, and can't even get my fingers that wide apart. There and there are the 2 vanishing points for this panel. And the horizon is somewhere between those 2 vanishing points. So the ground's way down here somewhere. But that's sort of to show you that you can get nice, interesting angles. You'll get that in this one as well. It's not just a flat building. We've got angles here going up and down, and these are also in perspective. They don't look it because they're very close, but they're actually getting closer and closer together, and they'll eventually meet up. But they're going to meet up probably like a meter that way. And then there's even perspective this way, which is going to go off the page. So this is perspective that way. So the perspective points in this one is way off to this side, way up in the air, and there's no sort of sign of the horizon, but I think it's probably about there. But again, that's not, one of these points might be on the horizon. This one might meet up with the horizon. It will actually, they'll all come back to that, but that one's off in the air. I lost track of what I was talking about. Too busy drawing on my comics. So just going over what we were doing with that. Plan out whatever your story is first. Plan out your pages and what panels you're going to use to help tell your story, whether it's angled ones, multiple small ones, one big one, combination of those. And remember to balance out. Remember this? So instead of all dark things being on one side, just move them into that third. It helps balance. Doesn't matter, but anything sort of move into the thirds to help balance. Have sort of triangular areas of when you've got multiple people. Again, in this Hulk one, here we've got a nice, we're seeing Bruce, we're seeing this guy who's talking, and then that guy's talking as well. So there's a nice sort of triangular balance between that. And then here we've got again, we still have got those two guys in this one, and then we've got Bruce and Betty. So we're focused on these guys, and then this guy, but we're guessing that's General Ross, Betty's dad. So the triangle is those three. Yeah. So it's balanced. You might not notice it, but when you start looking at the panels in a comic, you can start to see these things and see the rule of thirds. And if you see a panel where you're like, you know, this drawing doesn't, it might look beautiful, might be really nice drawing, but it doesn't look right. If you start breaking it down into the rule of thirds and things like that, you could start picking up that they haven't hit those thirds, or they haven't pushed it quite far enough, or their perspective's off, you know. Okay, so that's covering what we did last week. This week, we're going to skip ahead to next week, which is hatching. And some of you have done hatching before. I just did hatching with the junior group, but I'll go into a bit more detail with you guys. So these are the hatching things that we did in the last one, but I'm going to draw them again. So if everyone could draw 5 circles, we're going to do 5 different kinds of hatching. You don't want them to be huge circles. They don't have to be perfect circles. I mean, they could be squares. They don't have to be circles. I'll do a combination. Just 5 shapes. Here's a triangle, and then another circle. Just like that. Excuse me. Sorry if it feels like I'm rambling today. I am struggling with my thoughts because I am sick and my head's all fuzzy. Hopefully it's coming through and you're understanding what I'm saying. So the 5 different kinds of hatching we are going to focus on are regular hatching, cross hatching, stippling, random lines, and uneven lines. So let's start with, my pencil's blunt. Let's get another one. There we go. With hatching. So hatching, hatching. So hatching is just a single line in one direction. It doesn't have to be in one direction. It could be in multiple directions, but never crossing over, because that would be cross hatching. We're just doing hatching. So imagining that there's a sun's coming from this side on all these shapes. So this side's going to be lighter. This side is going to be darker. So the hatching is usually how you make something darker. So I might just start like this. So I've got more lines on this side to make it darker. I'll zoom in on that one. And less lines on the opposite side to make it lighter. Now, to make that even darker on this side, I can draw lines in between these to fill in the white gaps. So I'm sort of coloring it in, but by doing lines. And the more lines you do, the darker it's going to get, because you're filling in the light areas. And so it's going to make it look darker. So it looks like it's shaded. That is hatching. Alternatively, with hatching, you could do, lines this way, some lines this way, just to sort of color it in. But that sort of starts being a bit like uneven hatching, which we will cover in a second. Oops, uneven. Usually hatching is just in one direction like that. Then we have cross hatching. I do have terrible handwriting, so I apologize if you can't read. So cross hatching is just as it says, same as hatching. So here's my hatching. And then I'm going to do it the opposite direction and make little crosses. So they're making X shapes. So I'm going this way and then that way. You could do this way, that way, and then so that you're doing the two diagonals. And then you could go horizontal and then vertical. That's going to make it darker. It's all cross hatching. But what I prefer to do to make it darker is, like I did over here, is just add in more lines, still in that same direction. And they don't all have to be the same size either. I'll show you can do some bit of a gradient. I've done it a bit there. So for example, if I had a bunch of lines like that, but I want it to be darker on one side, and I'm going to do extra lines in the middle, if I only did them part of the way, and then I did more that were even shorter, and then more that were even shorter, it's going to form a bit of a gradient like that. So even when doing hatching, you don't have to do all the lines the same length. You can shorten them and do them at different lengths. Okay. So that's hatching and cross hatching. The next one we're going to do is stippling. Which is my favorite. I like it. Stippling is using dots. Again, with all of these, you don't have to press hard. It's just a matter of doing more or less lines. So stippling, spelled S-T-I-P-P-L-I-N-G, stippling, is dots. So where it's light, you want no dots. And then as it gets darker, we're going to have more dots. And the dots are going to get closer together and more in number. So lots and lots of dots. This is why you don't want, if you're using a felt tip pen, you don't want to press too hard because you end up breaking the end of the nib on the pen. Like all the other hatching, the closer together you draw them, the darker it's going to look because you're filling in all that white space. And this can take a while, especially because I'm drew a big circle as well. I was saying in the other group, you could do this with a stamp as well. You know, like a little stamp you might get in a stationery set, like of a little teddy bear or a little. I saw someone once in, I think it was their year 12 major work, did a portrait of Saddam Hussein using a rubber stamp of his name. So they used a stamp that was just the words Saddam, I think it was, and they just stamped it over and over again using this stippling method, and made a portrait which was probably like 6 foot tall painting or 6 foot tall artwork of Saddam Hussein's face, all made just by stamping over and over again. It was quite amazing. So you can sort of see there that it's getting dark underneath here. And you can sort of see where the light is up there. You could also do this by drawing circles. And like if you draw circles close together, and then they sort of, you know, become more spread and further apart, it's going to do the same effect. So that's stippling. The next one we're going to do is uneven lines. So U-N-E-V-E-N, uneven. This is sort of like I was showing up here with the different angles of hatching, where you do, it could be 4 lines, it could be a scribble, it could be, you know, a swirl, anything like that, any kind of repeating pattern, but it mustn't ever, you can't do a downward line like that. Let me zoom in. Downward line like that, and then do another one like that. You always want to have them not touching the same angle. Like that. You want to sort of mix it up as if you're rotating the stamp. Basically, if I was using a stamp that had 4 lines, I'd stamp it, rotate it, and then do them another way. And the way that you can do hatching with this is, as it gets closer to the light area, you can fade them off and they get further apart or even shrink, like I just did then, down to a dot. And as they get darker, you can overlap them slightly or even draw them smaller, so they're filling in more areas like that. So that's uneven hatching. That one is done a lot in backgrounds, especially if you've got, actually, there's any of these somewhere. Especially if you've got no detail in the background, it's just plain background. They might do a bit of uneven hatching just to add some texture to a wall or something. Well, here's some examples of hatching in this Hulk comic. It's more like the lines that I was telling you about, but they want to have this area lit up. So they've got that thick line coming down there and then hatching coming off that. So it's a gradient from black sort of to gray to white. And even here, look at this hatching on that. So it's all colored in here. This is cross hatching because I can see lines going this way and then lines going slightly that way as well. They're doing all curved lines here. So they're going from black through to white again by doing this hatching. And then like it goes all the way down there. See some crosses here. Even just this kind of stuff here in the hair or on the face. I don't know if it's showing up because these are just lines, but they're sort of showing the shape of the face, but it's still hatching because it's just lines to give the idea of volume. Same with the hair there. Lines just curving around, and then some curving this way to show that that's a lump and there's a highlight. So it helps you show volume and shape as well as light and shadow. Okay, now the last one, the last style we're doing is random lines. R-A-N-D-O-M, random. This is one continuous scribble. So I put my pencil on the page and I keep scribbling and I don't take it off. So it's basically as if you don't want to press hard again, but it's basically like you've made a mistake and you're scribbling it out. But think of where your light areas are, your mid areas, and your dark areas. So I'm just gonna like scribble like this. And my took my pencil because my pencil broke. So where I want it to be dark is where I'm going to try and fill in as much of that dark area, the white areas as possible. But then as I come up, I'm going to have a bit more freedom and be a bit looser with where I go, but then still trying to fill in some of those dark areas down the bottom. Here's another one I did last time. Oh, so I should have I'll fold it over. Sort of get the sense of the light coming in from this way. That's good, Riley. Pardon me. So that's 5 different kinds of hatching that can help you in your comics and in your illustrations. They're sort of best used when you're only doing black and white comics, like I showed you in that Hulk one. It's not often used nowadays in more modern comic, color comics. I'm just looking through a few of these to see if there's anything in there. This one's the Capture Creatures is very watercolor painted, but like this is all just, there's no outline or anything. Some outline here, but there's not really. But if you look on this mountain, there's some sort of hatching there to get an idea of rocks, and at the edge of these grass tufts, there's a bit there, but there's not much at all. There is a little bit on these trees, just to show a little bit of shadow and some texture, but it's the shadow's done with color. You can see the light and the dark there, and then even down here, there's a little bit on the rocks. So it's very minimal. There's hatching there in the shadow across the bottom. So color comics rely more on the color than the hatching to show light and shadow. Although on this very first panel, remember I said about the establishing shot? There's a nice establishing shot. Look at all the hatching in this, and the rocks and stuff there. There's a lot of detail in those. And then the next panels, nothing. It's just color, because it's the sky. So you could do a combination of the two. Just looking at this other comic that I've got here, the Werewolf one, there is little to no hatching whatsoever. It's a little bit here in this girl's hair, but it's just sort of the main dark area, like black ink area, and then the shading's been done by doing a different color, but still in that jaggedy line. So the brown line across here. So there's a light brown, a dark brown, and then a black. That's about as far as it goes with doing hatching. It has more just solid colors. So there are a couple more things I want to show you. I'll just see if there's more examples in this one. Nope. And no more of that one. Nope. So I'll show you what we drew in the last class as well before we draw something. I had a lot of time to draw something, but to say drawing it, I can show you. So we drew this. Excuse me. Just a simple line shape. I outlined it with a thick Sharpie, sort of a regular Sharpie with the fat end. So I just went around the complete outside. I never crossed over inside, just outside. So you can see here, I didn't go around the mane. I went around the ear. and then you can go down the body there. I went around the tail. And then I did with an outline thin. Oh, sure, if your brother do that, yeah. With this thin outline, went around the inside lines, and then we use different kinds of hatching. So you can see on the body here, we did some, let me get my pencil to point, did some regular hatching there and there, but then I added a bit more hatching to become cross hatching to make it a bit darker. We did some random lines for the hair, the tail and the mane. There's some uneven lines in the nose, and then a little bit of stippling on the face. So you don't have to use all of the different types of hatching in one drawing. Usually you can use different kinds of hatching to show different textures. And I'll show you a bit of that now. For example, if I was going to draw a rock, just a sort of a jagged rock sitting on the ground, and there's a couple other little rocks like that. Simple rock. Rocks are usually porous, which means that they can absorb water. Water can flow through rocks. That's how caves and things are formed. So I could, I had a few different angles on this rock just to give it a bit more texture. So there's some different facets to it. I could do some stippling on this rock. Just some lighter bits top there, but where I want some darker areas, I can do them a bit closer, because it looks like it's grainy, almost like sand. So I can use the stippling effect to give this some shading. If I wanted it to be a bit more of a rugged kind of thing, I could still do, hatching as well on there. But stippling is sort of a nice way to do it as well. Stippling is sort of more a fine kind of thing. Or if I was even drawing like a sand dune or a pile of sand, say someone was buried under the sand, because sand's very grainy, I could use the stippling to show shadow on that as well. So just on this is like the shadow side here, just on some little bit of stippling. Stippling, hatching. Excuse me. Like I said, with the uneven lines used to show texture, if I was drawing, sorry, take glasses off. If I was drawing like a hessian sack or a roughly woven blanket or something, I might use some cross hatching or uneven hatching to show that there's a bit of texture in this blanket, that the stitches and the way it's woven, like that. That could show some nice textures in there. So I'm just going to write rock stippling, cloth, uneven, and cross hatching. Audrey, it's your birthday tomorrow. It was my birthday last week. Does that mean you're an Aquarius? I don't know. I think it is. I'm an Aquarius. Mine was on the 13th, day before Valentine's Day. How old are you going to be, Audrey? Hold it up on the screen. How many fingers? 9? No, there you go. Well done. I won't tell you how old I'm turned. It's depressing. And let's see, what else we got left? Is a 1, 2, 3, 4 hatching. The random lines. So the random lines, because it looks like hair, it sort of looks like a lot of hair inside a glass dome or something there. It's good to use for hair. So if we're doing, just say, like the woman in the Hulk comic, just say this is someone's hair, maybe it's like a fringe or something, and the end of the hair we might do some lines like this, so it's hair coming down. We could do that hatching, but remember it was curved to show shapes within the hair. So you can use hatching, or hair is hatching. But instead of doing the straight hatching, we're sort of making it a bit curved. And then we could also do those ones where it's sort of darker in the middle and it fades off. Or like in the uneven hatching, it'd be good if someone had curly hair. Say someone had like an afro or something. Just do like a quick little face like that. So someone's little face with an afro, and can do the scribbly. Oh, I hit the camera. The random lines to add in the shadow for the curly hair. Here's random hatching, random, uneven, cross hatching, stippling. There you go. So that's how you can use those different hatching techniques. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Hatching techniques to enhance your drawings and add shading to black and white drawings. But you can also use it in color as well. I also did this in the last lesson. It was a turtle. Have a drink. And so what I did with these shell sections was I just copied that pattern and got smaller and smaller, as if I was doing a smaller and smaller stamp. But then to show light was coming from one direction, when I traced it, I faded the line off by doing little dots. So trace a line here and then dot, 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 dot. On each one of those, dot, 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 dot. So it looks like the line work was getting blown out because of the amount of light hitting it. So then when I erase the pencil lines, just blow it so that it dries. When I erase the pencil lines, I've got solid lines here and broken lines and then no lines. So it's as if it's dark and getting lighter. And then you can emphasize that by using color. Like I'd leave this area white, this area would be a mid-tone, and this area would be dark, like this. And you can do gradients in between them, so they're not just solid colors. So that's the gray tone in between, and then the white area. So that's what I was doing on each one of these little panels. So yeah, we've now covered, in 2 lessons, we've covered 3 lessons. So I'm not sure what we were planning on doing after next week's lesson, which is hatching. But we might, I think towards the end, from memory, we have a lesson where I want you to work on a page, on a comic page. So we might have a couple of lessons where we do that, and that's cool, Jensen. And that'll be where I can actually help you and sit with you, or not sit with you, but be there, and you can show me, and I can help you with your panel layouts and stuff like that. So we might have a couple of lessons with that. But in the remainder of this lesson, why don't you guys draw anything you want? Keep it simple, like this tiger or this lion or this turtle kind of thing, and try your hand at doing some different kinds of stippling. I want to see what you guys come up with. It doesn't have to be a fully detailed character. It could be very simple, a few different shapes, but try and show different textures, like I did here with the mane, and the stippling. So think about here, like whether you're trying to show hair or material, or stone, or some kind of environment thing. Like even if you're doing leaves, what kind of texture might you do on a leaf? Or how would you make a leaf look different from a feather using different techniques? Because they're basically the same. One of those is a leaf, one of those is a feather. How am I going to show that it's one's the other? One isn't the other. So you could do that with your hatching techniques. You could do a lot of hatching to get those sort of different scales on the feather. Where a leaf, you might have more broken areas and do veins or something, or break some bits up. Do a little bit of hatching along the edges, along the spine. I can't think what it's called. The stem of the leaf. Where a feather might be a bit more flowy at the bottom, it's sticking out. Like that. It's just by using lines. That's all hatching is using. Well, hatching is just using lines on your drawing, which is just using lines. So it's really, drawing is about learning how to convince people that the lines that you've scratched onto a page resembles something that they've seen before. So by making veins on a leaf or stippling on a rock, it makes it seem more realistic. Even if it's a cartoony rock, if I just drew this, but then put some dots on it, and that's all you saw, like it's on the ground kind of thing. It's a rock. Or you could do it like a crack in it. It might be an egg or something like that. So by using your line works in artistic ways and realistic kind of ways, you can fool the viewer into seeing what you see, or convince them into seeing what you see. And you trick their brain to say, I'm not just looking at a bunch of graphite smudged on a piece of paper, I'm actually looking at a rock or a leaf or someone's hair. When really it's not someone's hair, it's just a drawing, a bunch of lines on a page. That's the goal, is you want people to know what you're drawing. So give it a go in the last few minutes we've got left. Try drawing something. Riley, they look cool. I can tell the difference between the leaf and a feather. Yeah, just try drawing a little character, a little animal or a person, something simple. And yeah, Kai, you can draw. Oh, that could be a tooth. Is that what you're saying? That could look like a tooth? Yeah, it could be. I can see that. And yeah, use your hatching techniques to try and convince people what. Bella drew a mushroom. Oh yeah, I can see a mushroom. That's cool. convince people that what you're drawing is cool. Video, I'm just looking at saying it's really cool. It's cool guy. What is he spraying plants? He's got a little man. Okay. Oh dear. Actually, I played a game you might like, Kai. It's called Inside. Have you heard of that? It was on. I played it on the Switch. It was on the eShop. It was only like $3 on sale. But have you ever heard of Limbo? The game Limbo. It's all black and white. Yeah, it's like that. But you're a little boy, and there's all these sort of brain zombie people. They're like the being brainwashed, and you've got to try and just move from left to right, basically. And it has a lot of those kind of things that you put into your things. Check it out. You can see our walkthroughs and stuff on YouTube. It's just called Inside. That is a cute bunny, Audrey. There's hatching on there. Hussein, you got a question?
Can I show mine?
Yeah, show it.
Can you see it?
Oh yeah, that's cool. Hatchet on the hair.
Also, I have my Nintendo right next to me. What was the game called again?
Called Inside. Riley, that's cool. Rock, that rock looks like it's got a face. And Ken Rosman, that is Dot from Animaniacs. That's pretty good. I like that. Okay. Let's see if I got anything else I can show you in this comic. Of course, the way they used to draw things back in the 70s is completely different to how they do comics now. That's interesting. On the back page, there's a lot of hatching on this guy's leg muscles. I don't know if it's really showing up, but there's hatching one way and then the other is a bit of cross hatching going on in there. It's pretty cool. And then I saw something else. Oh, here. The hatching to sort of show this shiny metal on this spaceship. Sort of the wobbly line and his highlights. It's quite nice. And then the hatching up here, where it starts with thin lines and then they colored in with a thicker one to go into the black. Nice. Is it Goku or is it Vegeta? Goku? Yeah, okay. Jensen, that looks like Toad from Mario Brothers. With a couple of little guys there. All right. We've only got a couple of minutes left. Let me see if I can do something quickly while we're finishing. Well, even when we've drawn some like animals before, if I'm going to draw like a wombat's butt or something, there's like a little sort of wombatty. I see a lot of wombats around where I live, and unfortunately, I see a lot of them that have been hit by cars and they're dead on the side of the road. So I always drive very slowly at night, especially when it's foggy. It gets very foggy around here. And even when it's foggy, I've almost hit a wombat going very slow. Roshang, have you got a question?
Yeah, I'm done.
You done?
I did like a mini comic thing.
Oh, okay, let's have a look.
Sure. Okay. Wait, I can't even see what I did.
You need to hold it really close. Excuse me. I can't tell what's going on. Is there an airplane or a bird? It's an airplane. But I can't read it. It's way too small on my screen. Can you read it for me and tell me what's happening?
Can you read it now?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, next one. Other way.
Oh, right.
And the plane's coming forward. It's a copy that. Remember. Do it quickly. Okay. Yeah. What's next? Oh, it's inside the cockpit. Yeah. And then click.
Okay. This one next to it. Yeah.
And then the missile comes out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that was on page.
There's like the next page.
Okay. Show me quickly. And then boom, the missile comes out. Yeah, cool. And then what's that? I can't see what that is. Oh, it's the plane again. Where are boys? It's okay. So it's a fleet of them, is it? And then meanwhile on the ground. What's on the ground there? I can't see. I can't see what that is. What is that last panel?
It's supposed to be a bunker.
Oh, okay, I can't see. It's very faint lines.
And then there's just this.
Is that just giant explosion?
Yes.
Okay.
And then at the end it just says kaboom.
Yeah, great. Good job. So what I was just going to show you in the last couple of minutes is different kinds of hair on this wombat. So as I was just doing the nose, did a couple of little bits of hair on the top of the nose, and then like I could clean up into a smooth nose like that. Maybe a couple other little bits coming down there. You could do some little porous dots on the nose as well. But we've drawn like animals before that have like that jagged fur like that. But we can sort of, what am I saying? We can add to that by, you could draw something that's completely furry. Like it's completely covered in fur.
But it's running out of time. And
Yeah.
I know you're 6. I really appreciate your enthusiasm.
I'm trying to push through. I'll just do this little bit, but so you could, I'll be like 2 minutes, Peter. So like the minimal you could do is just a couple of little textury bits like this, just to show sort of the fur. But just say I wanted to do this bit in shadow, have a highlight up here. I could do very few little hairs up here. This is sort of like stippling now almost. But then add in these areas, like fill the whole area with hair. And of course here we don't want it to be super thick because we want it to be dark here. So what I might do, just to cheat it a little bit, is I'm going to use my thick Sharpie just to color in these bits. This is where I want the shadow, remember? So it's going to be black. And then I'm going to then feed the black back out like this. oops, hit the camera. So it's going to get the hair's getting very close together as it gets to that dark patch. But then as we come out, they can be kind of a little bit more space around them. And they don't all have to be the same direction. So it's a bit like stippling, a bit like uneven hatching, because there's sort of lines all over the place. But you can sort of make things look really detailed and fuzzy by putting in lots and lots of stippling and shading in. And just doing these little crosses. There you go. So you sort of get the idea there. Looks like a big hairy wombat leg. And you could do the whole thing. Like it could be mainly black in these areas, and then have some of the hair here. So this kind of mid hair could be here with a highlight. This could all be black. This highlight could be highlight up there. That's all black. Maybe that comes around to there. Yeah, maybe that's all black. And then even down here, this could all be black. Little highlight up there, black here. So, you know, that would be my plan. And then I go back and spend time to use the big Sharpie on these black areas, and then on these mid areas, do all these little hair lines. And then in these highlight areas, I do just a few little lines. And I could do that whole thing. Probably take me an hour or so just on that. And that's one way you can then use hatching to enhance your drawings and make it look like it was more of a wombat. Shafia, that's really cool. Audrey, that's cute too. So I think we're going to leave it there because we're now going overtime. We said we're going to finish early and we went overtime. You there, Peter?
Yes, I'm here. That's it,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We have to end.
I'm going to go to bed, I think.
Yeah, for Evan to rest.
Have some medication and go to bed.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to unmute everyone to say goodbye to Mr. Evan.
Bye.
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 Bye. Thank you.
Bye.